Well, welcome to another episode of Christian Answers for Today. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be talking about the so-called bathroom laws that are being disputed all over the country, specifically down in the South. Good citizens of the state of North Carolina and other states are trying to put some sanity into an insane world. They're trying to safeguard their children against, for example, a girl going into a girl's bathroom and finding a 6'2", 300-pound man who is trying to identify as a woman, and the problems that that would cause, and so forth. And so these citizens have passed laws against people going into the bathroom that does not correspond with their biological gender. And this common sense law, this common sense policy is being challenged and is being, activists are marching and protesting against this common sense law. And it's amazing to be in the United States at this point in time where you actually see people who are objecting to wisdom, common sense, prudence, sanity, rationality. They're objecting to that and getting emotionally activistic in their presentations against the common sense laws. And it's just common sense that when you have girls going into the girls' bathroom and boys going into the boys' bathroom, you don't want boys going into the girls' bathroom. You don't want girls going into the boys' bathroom. You don't want that kind of situation because it's going to cause a lot of problems. Well, in our country today, in the 21st century, that simple logic doesn't hold anymore, because now we have a special class of people. They are called BGLT people, and they cannot be questioned, they cannot be scrutinized, they cannot be treated as people under our Constitution, evidently. They must be a special protected class of people who are given special rights, uber rights. They're given more than just rights. They're giving super rights. And now we are being told by the LGBTQ activists that the transgender community has to be able to go into any bathroom it wants to go into at any time, simply on the basis of how a person identifies what sex they are. So you might have a man that identifies now as a woman, so he can go into the woman's bathroom. And it should be totally legally possible to do that. And that's what these activists are trying to tell us. And that is totally bogus. That is totally false. There is not a shred of wisdom in that. There is not a shred of logic in that. It's pure emotional, whipping up the activists and the gullible public who will follow along. Well, the Hollywood crowd now, the musicians, the artists, the actors and actresses of the world are now uniting against common sense, against wisdom, against prudence, and they're jumping on the bandwagon, and they're wanting to protest this law that North Carolina just recently signed, and it basically limits the activity of girls to the girls' bathrooms and boys to the boys' bathrooms and men to the men's bathrooms and women to the women's bathrooms. It basically says you must go to the bathroom of your gender, and the Hollywood crowd doesn't like that because they want to be able to go into the bathroom anytime, anywhere they want of any sex. And this craziness has spread now to the point where some leading musicians, they're trying to put pressure on North Carolina to change that, and one of the celebrities that has now come out against North Carolina and common sense is Bruce Springsteen. And we're going to hear a commentary by Dr. James White on his program, The Dividing Line, showing how really stupid this is, that the boss, Bruce Springsteen, is trying to lobby now against common sense, against wisdom. And we're going to watch some of James.
I've got to read this because It absolutely you know, nearly a decade ago, I was to the point of being without words to describe what was going on in our society. That was a decade ago. That was nothing compared to today. As you, my fans, know, I'm scheduled to play in Greensboro, North Carolina this Sunday. As we also know, North Carolina has just passed HB2, which the media are referring to as the bathroom law. HB2, known officially as the Public Facilities Privacy and Security Act, dictates which bathrooms transgender people are permitted to use. Just as important, the law also attacks the rights of LGBT citizens to sue when their human rights are violated in the workplace. No other group of North Carolinians faces such a burden. To my mind, it's an attempt by people, now listen, to my mind, it is an attempt by people who cannot stand the progress our country has made in recognizing the human rights of all of our citizens to overturn that progress. Right now, there are many groups, businesses, and individuals in North Carolina working to oppose and overcome these negative developments. Taking all this into account, I feel this is a time for me and the band to show solidarity, listen, for those freedom fighters. Freedom fighters. As a result, with the deepest apologies to our dedicated fans in Greensboro, we have canceled our show scheduled for Sunday, April 10th. Some things are more important than a rock show, and this fight against prejudice and bigotry, which is happening as I write, is one of them. It is the strongest means I have for raising my voice in opposition to those who continue to push us backwards instead of forwards. Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band's Sunday, April 10th show is canceled. Oh, wow. The Lord's Day. Oh, anyway. Tickets will be refunded at point of purchase. It should not be surprising to any of us that the Hollywood elite is absolutely in love with moral anarchy because they're pushing it. It's part of their agenda. Here you have a man who obviously has a completely upside down moral compass, a broken moral compass. And you may love The Boss. I don't have a single song by Bruce Springsteen anywhere in my iTunes library. And I've got a fairly wide variety. I'm not a fan, never have been, and certainly now never will be. But you may be, doesn't matter, don't care. Singing songs, playing a guitar does not mean that you have ever invested anywhere near sufficient time in developing a meaningful moral and ethical worldview. But if you actually think that transgenderism, now let's talk about transgenderism for just a moment. I believe that there is a small percentage, very small percentage of the human family that includes individuals who are confused concerning gender. I believe in minimally 98% of the situations that is due to specific instances of sin, abuse, non-functional families, which is a function of sin, in the experience of those individuals. No question about it. I think there is very little evidence of any kind of natural, genetic, wired situation where someone who is genetically male will only experience happiness by wearing dresses and being mutilated by surgery, lives cut short, and being forced to take – massive doses of hormones their entire life. And it is mutilation of the body, going either direction, whether it's a female trying to morph into a male or a male into a female. It can't be done. And even if it somehow someday could be done, as most people recognize, it is a destructive thing to do. You're not allowed to say this if you hold positions of authority. I guess that's why I get to say this, because it's just us chickens here in the old bunker. But the reality is that it's a small percentage of people, and it is a mental issue. It is a sickness issue. It is a disease issue for those individuals. I mean, for someone who, for example, is actually has body dysphoria and feels like their left arm, their left arm is somebody else's. And there are people who will actually cut their appendages off. If you can cut an appendage off, you have a serious mental problem, okay? There are people like that. But I believe that is a very small percentage of what's called the transgender movement or community or whatever. I would say in the vast majority of instances, transgenderism is simply sinful rebellion against God and nothing more. It can have all sorts of motivations and reasons, but it is an individual standing up and saying to God, I will not fulfill the duties that have been given to me by my Creator in the way that I have been made. I won't do it. I won't do it. So, to say that we now live in a society where the safety of our daughters and granddaughters must be sacrificed on the altar of leftist, socialist, moral stupidity and arrogance. To say that we have to bow to that is a clear indication of the abject insanity of the left in our society. It truly is. It's judgment. It's abject judgment. Now, the funny thing is, I fully support Bruce Springsteen's right to cancel a show. Hey, give the money back. And if you have made that, if you think these people are freedom fighters. Now, by the way, I find that I cannot find it within myself to work up an ounce of respect for identifying someone who wants to abuse bathrooms as a freedom fighter. That shows a moral decrepitude that is shocking and shameful, and I will not apologize for that. But if Bruce Springsteen is so morally decrepit that is the commitment he's made, then he has the right to not be forced to utilize his, what some people consider musical talent, in a context that would violate his beliefs. But what that also means is that if you're a baker and you use your artistry in the celebration of marriage, you shouldn't be forced to do that against your beliefs either. And if you're a photographer, you should not be forced to go into a context of the profaning of marriage to invest the use of your skills and your artistry to promote that either. But you see, the left says, no. Equality and freedom is only for us. It's not for you. Isn't that what's being said here? Because I can guarantee you, Bruce Springsteen isn't going to support a Christian photographer or a Christian baker. No way. So in other words, Bruce Springsteen is a glowing hypocrite. Yeah, as is the entirety of the movement. Freedom fighters, prejudice and bigotry. So if I want my granddaughter to be able to use the ladies' room without running into a 6'4" genetically male man in a dress doing whatever you do in a restroom, I'm prejudiced and I'm bigoted. No, that means I'm a human being with a brain that's still functioning. That's what that means. I haven't had my moral and ethical common sense eroded by the constant exposure to the stupidity of secular humanism. That's what that means. It's not prejudice. It's not bigotry. It is simple common sense. It's simple common sense. Now people are saying, well, when are we just all going to wake up? Well, from a Christian worldview, don't you think after a while all of this stuff might show what's really going on here? That this is a supernatural blinding? You know what I ought to do? Just thought about this. I ought to have Dr. Hartley on. It's hard to get him, he's busy. But I have him on to talk about his book on the judgment passages, especially the Isaiah 6 passage, which is used so often in the New Testament. It's one of the most often used Old Testament texts, is the blinding of the hearts and making the heart hard and so on and so forth. And I ought to see if I can get him on to talk about that text, because it's quite relevant in a number of New Testament passages, especially today as we're looking at what's going on in the world around us. That might be a rather useful thing. So, anyways, there's the Bruce Springsteen. I really wondering where Bruce is going to perform next. Is he going to use this newfound power to force every state that has laws that he doesn't like to change those laws? I mean, popular people, Arius used music to promote his heresy, and if we live in a day where people think that because you can strum a guitar or memorize lines and act in movies, that gives you, tremendous moral authority, well, you get what you pay for, You get what you pay for. I don't know. So anyhow, had to address that. That was just absolutely amazing. I was sent, there's a bunch of things coming out on the growing popularity of incest and things like that in Western media. Yeah, I know. That doesn't shock me at all.
Okay, we're back, and that was a powerful commentary by Dr. James White. I've got something to add to that because there's a recent development. The member of Bruce Springsteen's band, the E Street Band by the name of Steven Van Zandt, comments further on the band's decision to cancel their North Carolina concert date. It says here in the news article, early Friday, Bruce Springsteen canceled a show in North Carolina in protest of an anti-transgender law recently passed by the state. During Friday night's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony in New York City, E Street Band member Steven Van Zandt said it wasn't a decision Springsteen and the band took lightly. Quote, "You never want to disappoint fans," said Van Zandt, who was on hand to present a Lifetime Achievement Award. Quote, "But this evil and vile discrimination is starting to spread state to state. We better take a stand now early and try to stop it, or at least some kind of example for others to do the same." So can you believe that here's a guitarist, a rock and roll guitarist of a pop culture band, and he's calling the common sense legal policy of boys going to boys' bathrooms and girls going to girls' bathrooms and men going to men's bathrooms and women going to women's bathrooms, that policy, which is sound and solid legal and common sense thinking, he's calling that, I quote, evil and vile. But this evil and vile discrimination is starting to spread state to state. So he's calling this evil and vile when the state legally is telling boys and girls to don't go into the bathroom of the opposite sex, and you can't just make up in your mind what gender you are. You have to conform to the gender that you were born with, that is in every cell of your body. If you were born a male, you are a male. If you are born a girl, you are a girl. And you have to follow that biological pattern. And that is exactly what the Bible says. That is exactly what the Bible teaches, that men are to be men and women are to be women. There is no instructions. In fact, it teaches against men trying to be women and women trying to be men. The Bible teaches us that we must trust God and trust the way He created us. And if you were created woman, you are to be woman. And if you are created man, you are to be man. And this is common sense. Not only is it divine revelation, but it's common sense. And now here is a rock star, a popular cultural figure trying to influence society. And he's using words like evil and vile to describe something that is so basic, so common sense, so just simply assumed that you wouldn't think that you would need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. But these people, the Bruce Springsteens and this Steven Van Zandt and the Hollywood crowd and the musicians and the artists and all of these culture-shaping people, they can't seem to figure it out. And the reason they can't seem to figure it out is exactly what James White described. They are blinded. They are blinded by sin. It's exactly what the Bible says. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It says that the God of this world, Satan, has blinded the minds and the hearts of those who are unbelievers. He has blinded them. They cannot see the truth, even if it's plainly in front of them. Now, I can't understand why people cannot see how simply basic this law is that North Carolina passed. Other than they are spiritually blind, just what the Bible describes. Because think of it this way. What kind of chaos will come about from a law that says that a person at any point in time who wants to identify for whatever reason, maybe they're crazy, maybe they're insane, maybe they're all of the above, they want to, for some reason, want to identify with the gender of the opposite sex, okay? So they make that decision in their mind. Now, the state is supposed to go along with the whims of each and every individual citizen based on their own self-identity. So in other words, when you are in a public place, it could be a concert, it could be a baseball game, it could be a basketball game, it could be any kind of sporting event, and you need to go to the bathroom, and so you go into the bathroom. If you're a woman, you go into the women's restroom, and all of a sudden there is a man there, a man who is a man, who looks like a man, who talks like a man, except that man has a dress on, and you're supposed to simply accept men coming into your women's restroom and going to the bathroom alongside of you. That's the way our society evidently is asking us to act. And why can't ordinary people like Bruce Springsteen and this guitarist and the Hollywood crowd and everyone else, why can't they simply see the problems that this will develop if we allow people to simply walk into any basically bathroom they want to walk into, whatever they want to identify with that day, whatever they feel internally is their gender that moment, that's where they go? No, that's chaos. We can't have that. And if you are a parent and you have a daughter in a school And this school has the insane policy of allowing boys to decide who they are from minute to minute. If a boy wants to identify as a woman, a girl, he can walk into the girl's bathroom, and then the next day he feels he wants to be a boy again, so he walks into the boy's bathroom. And maybe a girl wants to be a boy that day, and she wants to experiment what it feels like to be a boy, so she dresses up like a boy and identifies as a boy and tells the school system that she wants to be addressed by masculine pronouns, and the principals and the teachers all have to cater to her changing whim. This is insanity, people, and we as Christians need to stand up against it. We need to show how stupid and dumb it is. And we need to do so politely, but we need to do so firmly and say, look, not only is this anti-Christian, not only is this anti-biblical, it's anti-reason, it's anti-wisdom, it's anti-common sense. We need to return to sanity, and as Christians, we need to bear witness to the fact that God made men, men. He made male, male. He made woman, woman. He made female, female. He made people the way they are for a purpose. There's a purpose from God for the way you were made. If you were made a woman, there's a purpose for that in God's plan. And if you were made a male, there's a purpose for that. And we need to learn to be content with the way God made us. We cannot rebel against God, sinfully reject His will, and try to forge our own will. We need to hold on to what God has created. We need to return to sanity, and we need to witness in our culture and be lights and salt in our culture, to say to people, to say to the Bruce Springsteens and the Stephen Van Zants and to all the other Hollywood and musicians that want to try to put pressure on North Carolina to change their policy, we need to say, look, they're only doing what is common sense wisdom. It lines up perfectly with God's will. It lines up perfectly with reason and logic, and anything else is going to be chaos. We need to call people back to sanity. And I hope that this has helped clarify things in your mind so that you can go out and be a witness to the truth in this world. We'll see you back here next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.